There. All right, good evening, folks. Ken Hovind here and the crew at Dinosaur Adventureland. We're going to be discussing the topic of man and dinosaurs living together. Is that true? Did man live with dinosaurs? See, if the Bible is true, God made everything in 6 days. And people get all bent out of shape over this. Dinosaurs living together. Let me show you some of the evidence of why we believe that's absolutely true. The Bible says Adam was the first man, and Adam was 130 when his son Seth was born, Genesis chapter 5. And Seth was 105 when his son was born, and Enos was 90 when his son was born, and the dates are all given right there in the Bible. And they were living a long time because before the flood came, the world was very different. We talked about that earlier. All right. But anyway, the dates in the Bible clearly show that man lived to be 900 before the flood, and after the flood dropped off to 400, 200, 100. It's also a simple biological fact that reptiles grow all their life. They never stop growing. People stop growing. When they're 16 or 18, they're going to quit growing vertically. Some go horizontally after that, but here we go. Accessed today. Sharks aren't the only animal that keeps growing. Lizards, snakes, amphibians, and coral all continue to grow until they die. The scientific name for these creatures is indeterminate. Determine is the N, indeterminate growers. The Rocky Mountain bristlecone pine, like many other trees, lives for thousands of years and never stops growing. Do reptiles never stop growing? The skeletons of most mammals reach a certain size and then stop growing. However, many animals, including some mammals, keep growing through their lives. Kangaroos, for example, just keep growing and growing until they die. Most fish, amphibians, lizards, and snakes are also indeterminate growers. So what would happen to lizards or snakes or reptiles before the flood if they could live to be 900? They would get to be huge. Lizards grow and snakes and reptiles grow all their life. What would this guy look like if he could live to be 900 and get 30 feet long? I think probably some type of dinosaur with horns on his head. Now, I don't say that the Jackson chameleon turned into the Triceratops. I've never said that. I'm just pointing out there are lizards today that have 3 horns on their head, and there are fossil dinosaurs that have 3 horns on their head, and maybe there's a connection. There are quite a few, like the Styracosaurus and other ones. I think I may have some models of that here somewhere. Anyway, I believe strongly that the dinosaurs that we're finding in the ground are giant lizards from before the flood. The word dinosaur means terrible lizard. Okay, Dr. Cabrera is holding a human vertebrae, 5th lumbar, found in Cretaceous sediment in the Ocochacaja Desert in Ica, Peru. Man and dinosaurs live together. How could he find this with the same place dinosaur bones are found, a human vertebrae? Evidence of humans and dinosaurs living together has been found in Russia, Lagoa Santa, Brazil, Mato Grosso, Brazil, Ica, Peru, Glen Rose, Texas, and Charleston, South Carolina, among many other places. Dinosaur and human-like footprints have been found together in Turkmenia and in Arizona and in many other places. I'll show you an example here. There's a book by Francis Holmes in 1870 where they were doing a lot of digging in South Carolina, the phosphate rocks from South Carolina. Here's what they found when they were digging phosphate in South Carolina. Not long after finding the above-named relics of human workmanship, so they found human artifacts, and engaged in our usual visits to the Ashley bed where they're digging out the phosphates, a bone was found projecting from the bluff immediately in contact with the surface of the stony stratum, the phosphate rock. We pulled it out, and behold, a human bone. Without hesitation, it was condemned as an accidental occupant of quarters to which it had no right geologically. Here's the problem. Since the mid-1800s, they've already decided this stupid geologic column, Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, Archeozoic, and anything that doesn't fit the column is just simply rejected. They pull a human bone out of the rock and say it can't be, it's an accidental occupant. It doesn't belong there. No, it doesn't belong to your theory maybe, but I think it belongs to reality. Professor Holmes showed me at the museum a gigantic human thigh bone, 3 inches longer than the average bone of the same kind. It was taken from these same beds. It was a remarkable fossil. Here are human fossilized hands found in Cretaceous rock, supposed to be millions and millions of years old. but here are human hand bones found in there. That was found near a large ichthyosaurus, which is a marine dinosaur. Now, they want you to believe man never lived with dinosaurs. How do you get human hands and dinosaur bones in the same rock strata? CreationEvidence.org has more information on that. According to New Scientist, February of 2001, researchers found several types of dinosaur and were surprised to find frog, fish, turtle, small mammal, and plant fossils as well. Hold it. I thought mammals and I thought they didn't live at the same time. Your geologic column is a carefully protected religion, part of your religion, but it's not science. Here's a pre-Inca, the Inca civilization, before they invented the N and made Inca, and pre-Inca Indian riding a dinosaur. This Ica stone found in Peru is one of about 11,000 in Dr. Cabrera's museum in Ica, Peru. Dr. Ball has several of the stones. I had 8 of them. Dr. Ball had 2 of the stones, some textiles, and a great video about the Ica area. You can call Dr. Ball in Glen Rose, Texas. There's their number, and they have a great museum there. Dr. Cabrera had 11,000 of them. Estimates are over 50,000 of these stones were found since 1535. Some of these are just clearly showing dinosaurs on it. If I understand what I heard from people who went there, Dr. Swift will be talking about it more. He's been there many times, and he's probably one of the American experts on this topic, first-hand experience, went there, and did it himself. He said about 500 of these stones have dinosaurs on them. Now, the Ica civilization was about 300 BC to 700 AD, I think. They lasted about 1,000 years, this civilization did. And when they buried people that died, they would bury them sitting up in a grave, because it's a desert. It never rains down there. It's rained twice in 400 years. They dig a hole, bury them sitting up with a blanket wrapped around them. That was just their custom. And next to them, they put artifacts from their life. And that's where they find these stones in these burial mounds, undisturbed for over 1,000 years. And they have dinosaurs. There's Dr. Swift's book. He also went to Cambodia, where they have a temple, like Indiana Jones, the old temple grown over with vines and stuff. On the side of the temple, there's a frieze carved into the side of the temple with this thing on it right here. We have a casting of it. Now, if that doesn't look like a hamster... Question. This temple was built in 1150 AD, 900 years ago. Okay? How did they... Is that a Stegosaurus? Plates on the back? See, to the evolutionist, they'll dance handstands to say, no, it can't be a dinosaur, because they have to defend their theory. But to a person with one eye and half a brain and an open mind, they'll say, well, it looks to me like in 1100 they knew about dinosaurs. How could they carve one? But southwest of Fort Worth is a little bitty town called Glen Rose, Texas. There's a river that runs through town here. It's the second to the fastest flowing river in Texas. For example, the Mississippi River drops 7 inches per mile. It has to flow a mile to drop 7 inches. This one drops 17 feet per mile. Steep ground, okay? Called the Paluxy River. In 1908, the Paluxy River flooded, which happens pretty often there, and the flood water went roaring through there so fast, it actually peeled off the bottom of the river. It's layer after layer of limestone. Limestone, limestone, limestone. The water's roaring through from this flood in 1908, and it peeled off a new layer of limestone, exposing a brand new layer of riverbed. Once the river went down and things calmed down, they looked in that brand new riverbed, 1908, and there were hundreds of dinosaur footprints. Hundreds of them. They chiseled out quite a few of the prints and took them to museums. The largest block of tracks went to the American Museum. They chiseled out, they hired people to come chisel them out and move it, take it apart and move these footprints. And they put it right under a big dinosaur skeleton. So it looks like the dinosaur just walked there and made these footprints, and people go there and say, oh, wow. The footprints are pretty big. Here's a kid taking a bath in one of them. The famous Tommy Pendley photo. What they don't tell you, and they should, was they also found many human footprints. I think nearly 100 now human footprints have been found intermixed with the dinosaur footprints. Roland Bird, 1930, went there from the American Field Museum. He reported 15 to 20 inch long, clearly defined human footprints. This was a big fella. Much to my surprise, the book documents literally hundreds, not just a handful, of well-exposed dinosaur track sites spread all over the world. Tracks, trackways, nests, eggs, and coprolites, that's dinosaur poop, of the reptilian masters of the Mesozoic and are chronicled from all over the world. And the record is an impressive one indeed in terms of not only abundance and geographic distribution, but also quality of preservation. In Florence, Colorado, you drive up on top of the ridge and they've got a little sign, dinosaur footprints, and you can stop. There they are, right there, beside the road. Lockley and Gillette report more than 400 dinosaur track sites, not just tracks, trackways. You know, right foot, right foot. 400 track sites in North and South America alone, and they especially note 12 large localities around the world that contain more than 1,000 individual tracks, and or more than 100 different trackways. Just Google dinosaur trackways. There are many examples, I got this today, a few minutes ago, of dinosaur footprints. There's a guy in Gory Carpenter in Kernersville, North Carolina, who has property in Virginia with over 1,000 dinosaur footprints on his property, just one person's property. Google dinosaur trackways. It's a common find. In 1884, Earl Flint, a geologist representing the Peabody Museum and Harvard University, discovered in a rock quarry near Managua, Nicaragua, on the shore of Lake Gilliva, a layer containing fossilized human tracks, 16 to 24 feet below the surface. Flint described the tracks in these words, written in 1884. The footprints are from 1/2 to 3 inches in depth, and none exceeded 18 inches. That's awfully big foot, 18-inch foot. Some of the impressions are nearly closed, the soft surface falling back into the impression. So you step in the mud and then the top sinks in, so you end up with just a slit 2 inches wide. But if you chisel it away, there's the footprint underneath with the mud squeezed in over the top. So he said the crevice about 2 inches in width is all one sees, and to my first glance at some parallel to one less deep, gave me an idea that the owner of the latter was using a stave to assist him in walking. So while he's walking, you see just a hole once in a while where a person would put down their walking stick. All this is preserved in the mud turned to rock. In some, the substance flowed outward, leaving a ridge around it, seen in one secured for the museum. The stride is variable, owing to the size of the person and the changing nature of the surface. When you're walking uphill or downhill, your stride may get closer or farther apart. The longest one uncovered was 17 inches, length of foot 10 inches, and width 4 inches. Feet were arched, steps in a right line, measuring from center of heel to center of great toe over 3 steps. The people making them were going both ways in a direction consistent to that of a present lake shore, east and west more or less. So trackways going both directions, somebody walking in the mud on the side of the lake, maybe for fishing. Among these and others in nearby sites, Flint found examples of both barefoot and well-defined sandal foot impressions. All were geologically dated at being 200,000 years of age. Now, supposedly at this remote time, man was nothing more than a naked, hairy creature, capable of chipping a few flints and just beginning to overcome his fear of fire. In sharp contrast, the Nicaragua finds reveal the intelligent use of a walking stick and the wearing of sandals that appear to have been best designed for both comfort and protection. We are confronted here with not just the footprint of a half-beast, but rather the footprint of a civilized being, Earl Flint from Harvard University. Before evolution became the dominant religion at Harvard, and you don't dare speak out against it now, or you lose your job at Harvard. 2 years earlier, in the summer of 1882, inmates working at the quarry at the state prison near Carson City, Nevada, brought to light a layer of sandstone covered with fossilized animal tracks, among them a number having belonged to the extinct mammoth. What caused considerable scientific consternation, however, was the fact that several human tracks were also found. The tracks were in 6 series, each with alternate right and left tracks. The stride was from 2.5 to over 3 feet, and the individual prints were 18 to 20 inches in length, that of a giant. The straddle, you have your stride and also your straddle. How far apart are the right feet from the left feet when you make your trail? The straddle, the distance between right and left, was 18 or 19 inches. Geologist Joseph LeConte read a paper on the investigation done on the Carson City tracks to the California Academy of Science in 1882 and attempted to explain them as the marks left by an extinct giant sloth. Okay. That lived during the late Pliocene over 2 million years ago. But sloths, in order to walk upright on only 2 feet, as the fossil tracks indicate, would have had to have used their tails as a balance. There are no tail grooves in the sandstone. But not only this, but a comparison between the Carson City track and known sloth impressions show several dissimilarities. The sloth's prints have marked toe protuberances as well as definite claw marks. The Carson City tracks show signs that the maker had worn some type of sandal or foot protection. Very definitely not the habit of an animal. Human footprints crossing dinosaur footprints in the same rock strata in Glen Rose, Texas. These human footprints are obviously right foot, left foot, right foot. Occasionally, they are inside the dinosaur footprint, which means the dinosaur walked there first. And if you're walking through a muddy area and somebody else has already stepped there, you would step in the same place because it's not as deep a mud. Human tracks inside dinosaur tracks. That's me 25 years ago. Few less gray hairs. Clearly define human footprints inside the dinosaur footprints. The casting that I had of this footprint is a ½ inch shorter because aluminum shrinks when it cools. It was a size 24. So they got the footprints going across the Paluxy River, right foot, right foot, and then it stopped at the ledge, the 2 foot thick rock ledge that the river had exposed in 1907 or 08, whenever it was. So Dr. Baugh, right here, and a crew of people with cameras watching and rolling, got crowbars and heavy machinery, and they peeled up big limestone chunks to expose undisturbed limestone, cracked it loose, lifted it up. There was the next footprint, in stride, right, left, right, left. Because somebody was saying, well, these are fake. Okay, who crawled under this rock and faked this one? And it's not just a loose rock, it's part of the limestone strata. They had to crack it loose. So they chiseled out one of the footprints carefully and sawed it right across the toes. Now we can see, is this a carving or is this an impression? And when you look at the toe marks, it was squeezed in because the laminate lines are distorted. This is a pressure mark, not an erosion mark. Hundreds of human footprints have been found, nearly 100 just in Glen Rose, Texas. And the man's stride in this place was 6 feet between steps. Here's a dinosaur and human footprint just a few inches from each other. A pastor from a First Southern Baptist Church in Cottonwood, Arizona. I tried to call them today to see if that number's still good, because this is from 20 years ago. He wrote me a letter. Here's what he said. Dr. Hovind, I grew up in Glen Rose. I went on an excavation with Dr. Carl Baugh. We followed the footprints of a man which were beside a dinosaur footprints. It was as if the man were walking with the dinosaur. Nova was there to film the dig. There was also an evolutionist there who had been arguing with Dr. Baugh the entire time. Nova didn't film much of the tracks or our dig, but they did interview the evolutionist. He told them he had not seen anything there to disprove evolution. What he didn't tell the camera was that he had refused to even turn around and look at the tracks we were working on. Wow. They're trying to point out to him, sir, here's a human track. I don't want to see it. I don't see any evidence here against evolution. Wow. That's how dedicated they are to their theory, to their religion. He stood with his back to the dig and the tracks while making these statements. Nova knew this man had not looked at the tracks, but did not report that. Nor did they give Dr. Baugh equal airtime to respond. One guy said, if there are human tracks in this same strata, that just proves there was a dinosaur with feet like a human. I'm serious. That's the kind of stupid they have to deal with. This guy said, from the Nova special, dinosaur footprints side by side with humans, finding them would counter evidence that humans evolved long after the dinosaurs became extinct, and back up the claim that all species, including man, were created at one time. Boy, it sure would, wouldn't it? Hear about this one. Ernst Mayr from Harvard University. Creationists have stated that humans and dinosaurs were contemporaries in time. Were this momentous statement true, The names of its discoverers would thunder down the corridors of time as individuals who made one of the most outstanding discoveries of the 20th century. You think so? I don't think so. I think they'd be fired from their job. Watch the movie Expelled.
Yeah.
The guy who found the dinosaur bone with soft tissue inside of it was fired from his job. Yeah.
Recently, right?
Yeah, you don't dare find something that goes against the religion of evolution.